The anime begins with a meeting of the gods, where all the gods of the world gather to determine whether they will let humanity continue to exist or whether they will end the planet once and for all. Unfortunately for all of us who live on Earth, the popular opinion was to end the planet. In fact, the decision was made unanimously. All the gods at the meeting voted to extinguish humanity. So, it was nice knowing you all, but wait a moment. Just as the order for extinction was about to be executed, a Valkyrie named Brunhild intervened in the meeting. Brunhild is on our side, folks. She is in favor of humanity. In her intervention, she argues that ending the planet like that seems unfair. Instead, she proposes a tournament that pits gods against humans. If humans win, they are allowed to live for another 1,000 years, but if they lose, then the planet will be destroyed. This tournament is called Ragnarok and is actually mentioned in the constitution of the gods. It consists of 13 duels between gods and humans. The first side to win 7 victories will be the winning side. For the love of Christ, I hope they call John Wick and Jason Statham to represent us. They never lose. However, the Assembly of Gods started to mock the Valkyries' proposal because, although Ragnarok is established in the Constitution, it was originally included as a joke. The gods believe it's impossible for a human to defeat a god. It has never happened, and they think it never will. But I still insist that we should call John Wick and Jason Statham. Seeing that the Valkyrie is being mocked for proposing Ragnarok, she appeals to the pride of the gods, saying that if they don't accept the proposal, it's because they're afraid of humans. And just like I manipulate my little brother to give me candies, the Valkyrie manages to persuade the gods to accept Ragnarok. Since the gods notice that the Valkyrie is on the side of humans, they grant her the freedom to choose the 13 humans who will fight for humanity. She is free to choose any human who has existed since the beginning of humanity, even if they are deceased. So, this allows us to choose Michael Jackson. Though Michael Jackson might not be very useful here because the duel is about fighting, not dancing. Anyway, the Valkyrie will choose the 13 humans she considers the most powerful in human history. And since that's the rule, I'm not sure if they'll choose John Wick and Jason Statham. Because let's face it, if we're going to have the freedom to choose from those who have already died, there are some very interesting options. But let's leave the choice in the hands of the Valkyrie. In the next scene, we see that the tournament has begun. Representing the gods, the first to fight is the Norse god Thor, and representing the humans, our representative is the great Lu Bu. When I saw that Lu Bu would represent us, I didn't know who the hell he was. But after a little research on Wikipedia, I found out that he was a very powerful Chinese general who lived around the year 150 AD. So I promise you we're in good hands with him. The combat begins, and we see both Thor and Lu Bu walking towards each other as if they're not afraid. When they get close, it's Lu Bu who lands the first blow, making Thor step back a few meters. And at that moment, Lu Bu goes for the final blow. However, Thor defended himself with his famous hammer. I mean, folks, let's not expect Thor to be defeated so easily without even being able to attack. So when Thor could attack, things got complicated. According to the story they tell us as filler, no one has ever withstood a blow from Thor's hammer in all the years of his existence. And now, he was going to unleash a powerful attack with his hammer, hitting poor Lu Bu directly. At this point, the rest of the gods began to say that the battle was over. But no, it turns out our Lu Bu is the first to withstand a blow from Thor's hammer. Not only that, but at the same time, he managed to cut Thor's chest, becoming the first to make the Norse god bleed. All the gods are surprised by this scene. Well, that's a lesson for them to stop underestimating humans. Because in a flashback, we'll see that Lu Bu has nothing to envy to the gods. I mean, he died because he was human, but in life, he could wrestle bears with his bare hands and defeat entire armies with his horse and a spear. In fact, he was executed not because he was overpowered, but because he allowed himself to be killed since there was no one strong enough to fight him, and he was bored. That's why now that he has found a worthy opponent, we see him thrilled. On the other hand, Zeus doesn't understand how Lu Bu, being human, can use his weapon against a god's weapon. Logically, the weapon shouldn't hold up. But the answer is that the Valkyrie, to make the fights a bit more even, decided to summon her Valkyrie sisters to become the weapons of the humans. Only in this way could humans have a tool that allows them to rival the gods' weapons. We see that Lu Bu's spear is glowing because, being a Valkyrie, that weapon is considered a sacred object capable of rivaling a deity's weapon. Moreover, the Valkyrie who transformed into Lu Bu's weapon is known by the nickname Shieldbreaker, which allowed her to break Thor's glove, causing Lu Bu's band to gain momentum. Lu Bu is winning the battle. He even managed to knock Thor's hammer down, which, as we know, is his main weapon. However, the serious problem arises when the damn hammer starts emitting strange smoke and then begins to break apart. This indicates that the hammer will undergo a transformation that will make it more powerful. The reason for this is that with Thor's glove broken, the hammer can now release all its power. So, poor Lu Bu is in for a tough time. But before we see the outcome of the fight, the scene changes because Brunhild received a WhatsApp notification informing her that the 13 gods who will fight in Ragnarok have already signed up. Besides Thor, the list includes Zeus, Buddha, Loki, Apollo, Apollo, Poseidon, Susano, Hercules, Odin, Anubis, Beelzebub, Vaisravana, and Shiva. On the other hand, we see that Zeus, as the leader of the gods, also received a WhatsApp notification about the 13 humans registered to fight in Ragnarok. However, they didn't want to translate the list to keep us in suspense. While they were receiving their WhatsApp messages, Thor was preparing to finish his fight on the battlefield. In that attack, he would unleash all his power, whether he managed to defeat Lubu with it or not. The battle would be decided at that moment. We see Thor throwing his hammer, and although it seems like Lubu managed to dodge it, Thor's intention wasn't to hit him with that throw or even when the hammer returned to his hands. Thor's true intention was to take advantage of the centrifugal force that the hammer would generate on its boomerang journey to cause an explosion where Lubu was, which we just witnessed. Although it may seem that Lubu was able to withstand the attack after the scene clarified, the truth is he didn't come out unscathed. We see his legs trembling, and he even fractured both tibias. Now poor Lubu is kneeling on the battlefield, where it seems Thor will deliver the final blow. But no, at that precise moment, someone approaches the battlefield, and that someone is none other than the horse that always accompanied Lubu in all his battles. The horse licked Lubu's legs, which can be interpreted as the horse urging its master not to give up. This sentiment was transmitted to Lubu's band, who started cheering him on. With this encouragement, Lubu felt his morale rise. Summoning strength from within and enduring the pain, he managed to stand up even with both legs fractured, thus getting on his horse. Now, with the horse acting as his legs, Lubu began to circle around Thor with the intention of using his most powerful technique, which we saw him use once before, splitting the sky with it. Now he seeks to use it again, but instead of the sky, he aims to split Thor in half. But Thor won't just stand there and take it. He'll also attempt to repeat his final technique, the one that broke Lubu's legs. This clash of powers will decide the outcome of the battle. Unfortunately, it was Lubu who suffered the worst. Now it's not just his legs, but his arms too. Even so, Lubu didn't give up. But obviously, without arms and legs, there wasn't much he could do. That's why Thor ripped his head off, and with this, the Norse god proclaimed himself the winner of the first battle of Ragnarok. In that moment, we see Lubu's army, who were in the stands feeling super downcast. They never thought their leader would be defeated. As Thor was about to leave the arena, he heard the horse whinnying, and with tears in his eyes, it demanded vengeance. This same feeling was shared by the rest of Lubu's army, who rushed onto the battlefield. Even though they knew they were no match for Thor, they still decided to throw themselves at him because their duty as soldiers was to die with Lubu. Thor made that wish of dying in combat come true for them on the same day as their leader. Following this, we see Brunhild's assistant grumbling about the Valkyrie's death, whom they had given as a weapon. But well, Brunhild scolds her assistant, telling her she must be strong because lamenting won't help them defeat the gods. With this thought in mind, she went to a screen where she chose the human who will face the gods in the next battle. And folks, this human turned out to be none other than Adam, the first man on Earth who made his flashy entrance by biting into the apple as only he knows how to do. Now, to face Adam, the tournament announcer had announced Buddha, but it turns out I don't know if Buddha was in the bathroom or what happened, but the case is that they informed the announcer that there had been a change in the order. So instead of Buddha, the one tasked with facing Adam ended up being Zeus. But folks, if Adam's entrance was flashy, Zeus's was doubly flashy. I mean, initially, everyone questioned why the combatant of the second duel was an old, skinny, and decrepit man. Most of the audience didn't identify the old man they were seeing with Zeus, but it wasn't until Hermes started playing an interpretation of Felices Los Cuatro that the little old Zeus started dancing like a pro, and in one of those moves, his body became super muscular, showing himself as what he is, the god of gods. And well, Brunhild is very worried about this, as she never thought Zeus would fight so soon. She understood that the one for the second combat would be Buddha, and that's why she had chosen Adam, but nope, she already chose Adam and there's no turning back. By the way, in a flashback to what happened minutes before what we just saw, we can observe that Buddha was ready to go out for the second combat. However, at that moment, Zeus appeared to prevent it, telling him that he would take his place. The truth is, Buddha was not at all in agreement with giving up his turn to Zeus, but well, Zeus simply put his hand on Buddha's trapezius and was able to neutralize him to the point where Buddha said he would give up the spot. That's why we see Zeus in the arena facing Adam, ready to begin the second duel of the day. However, Adam still needs to claim his legendary weapon, so we see a Valkyrie arrive on a Pegasus. After recreating Adam's creation pose, she transformed into the weapon of the first human on Earth. And folks, to the disappointment of many, the weapon turned out to be a simple gauntlet. Although, it's evident that Adam is satisfied, so if it's enough for him, it should be enough for the rest. The order to start the combat was given, and we see Zeus aggressively approaching Adam to throw a punch at him. However, Adam managed to dodge it quickly, which irritated Zeus a bit, so he started throwing 7,000 punches per second. But nothing, Adam kept dodging them without showing much effort. So Zeus opted to send him an axe kick, but it turns out that this too could be avoided by Adam after jumping. Then Zeus acknowledges that Adam is strong, however, he clarifies that just by dodging his blows and running away, he won't be able to defeat him. Well, this is something Adam agrees with, so following Zeus's suggestion, he decided to punch him in the face, causing Zeus to bleed. Afterward, it was Adam who started throwing 7,000 punches per second, but unlike Zeus, Adam managed to land his blows as well as the axe kick. Folks, honestly, I didn't think Adam could be so strong, but well, Brunhild tries to explain it, saying that since Adam was created in the image and likeness of God, he is now a copy of the gods. Hence, he can replicate the same things Zeus does. What's not very clear to me is why Adam's replication is better than Zeus's original techniques, but well, they didn't hire me to analyze, so I'd better stick to summarizing. At one point, we see Zeus getting violent and initiating a kick attack. However, Adam, as if he didn't have a spine, managed to bend himself enough to avoid the kick, and then it was he who landed the kick on Zeus, causing the poor old man to visit the ground and collide with the stands. With the tremendous humiliation Zeus is suffering, he got up very irritated and decided to use his most powerful technique, the one he used to defeat his father Cronus, who was considered the strongest being in the whole cosmos. So well, now Adam is going to have a tough time because that technique is also known for paralyzing time for everyone except the one who applies it, in this case, Zeus, who confidently believes that he will finally be able to punch Adam. But no, it turns out that darn Adam was also able to nullify this technique, simultaneously counterattacking Zeus and giving him a new punch in the face, leaving him stiff on the floor. I mean, the beating Adam gave Zeus is incomparable. Zeus couldn't land a single blow. In response to this, Ares, one of Zeus's sons, also known as the god of war, says that not even he, as the god of war, could see the moment when his father Zeus received the blow that left him stiff on the floor. To this, the god Hermes, Zeus's other son and therefore Ares' older brother, explains how Adam managed to dodge his father and deliver the lethal blow, which basically Adam did by copying Zeus's technique at the same time he unleashed it. Anyway, Adam was declared the winner of the second combat, and with this, Ragnarok was tied at 1 victory per side, which, considering the expectations placed on humans, is quite an achievement, especially when we consider the fact that the defeated god was none other than Zeus, the god among gods. Faced with this, Brunhild's assistant, who clearly doesn't have much faith in humans, asks the Valkyrie how it's possible that Adam could defeat Zeus. Brunhild tells her that it happened because Adam was motivated by the resentment he holds towards the gods. This stems from the fact that the gods decided to exile his wife, Eve, from paradise based on a false accusation made by a serpent, claiming she had bitten one of the forbidden apples. Upon hearing this, Adam barged into the tribunal where they had just condemned Eve in a flashy way, carrying a basket full of the forbidden apples, which he proceeded to bite and spit out one by one until he reached Eve. He proposed to her that they escape together from paradise since he didn't care what they said about her. The serpent, whose intention was always to possess Eve, got upset and tried to attack Adam, but no, if Zeus couldn't do it, much less could the damn snake. So Adam dealt with it, and then he and Eve left for Earth, where they ended up becoming mortal humans like any other. But the resentment Adam holds towards the gods never disappeared. Hence, he didn't hold back in his fight against Zeus. However, just as Adam was about to leave the arena, the old Zeus gets up, adjusting his collar. Although he's greatly affected by the beating he received, he says he has realized that Adam was able to deliver all those blows because of the hatred he holds for the gods. But no, Adam confesses that wasn't what motivated him. In other words, Brunhild spun us a tale that wasn't true, as Adam himself says that the only reason he had to give his all in the fight is to protect all his children. Because yes, as the first man of humanity, Adam considers all of us his children. Your great Adam, never die. However, Zeus didn't like Adam's boastfulness at all, so he began a transformation by compressing his own muscles, revealing his final form. And folks, this Zeus has more lives than a cat. However, according to Hermes himself, Zeus is not able to maintain that form for more than 13 minutes, so we're facing a scenario of all or nothing for Zeus, and Adam knows it. That's why we see him raise his guard for the first time in the fight, and although the situation seems unchanged in that Adam continues to dodge Zeus's blows while counterattacking, the truth is that Zeus's plan isn't to hit Adam. Instead, he aims to throw many punches to make Adam tired trying to copy them all. And yes, we see that his strategy is working because Adam started bleeding from the nose. But folks, Zeus is also getting tired, so the winner of the fight will be the one with the greatest endurance. In one moment, we see that Adam is reaching his limit, as now, in addition to his nose, he's also bleeding from his eyes and ears. This was seized upon by Zeus to land solid blows on Adam, and from here on, Adam is the one who dedicated himself to enduring, as apparently he's now blind. From the stands, his wife and children ask Adam to surrender, as he won't be able to withstand so many blows without dying. And just when it seemed like Zeus had landed the final blow, it turns out that Adam let himself be hit on purpose to grab Zeus by the little hair he has left. There, with his target in sight, he began to deliver punches while still receiving them. In one of these moments, the first to give in was Zeus, who, falling to his knees and with his body totally defeated, agreed to surrender. So, in the end, the winner of the fight was Adam. Well, that's what it seemed like, but no, it turns out that although Adam was standing, the truth is that he had died. In fact, Zeus recognized in Adam enough bravery to continue throwing punches even after death, so his gesture of surrender was a tribute to Adam. But well, in the end, the winner of the fight was Zeus as Adam threw in the towel. With this, the gods advanced 2-0 in Ragnarok, but nah folks, Adam's legacy goes far beyond this defeat. After having pushed Zeus to the limit, now humanity has hope that they can defeat a god. On the other hand, we see Brunhild's assistant angry because although Adam's gauntlet remained intact, the Valkyries still died. But well, then one of the Valkyries appears to tell her that by the spell they perform to become weapons, they are destined to meet the same fate as the wielder of the weapon. In previous cases, as the wielders died, the Valkyries did too. At one point, we see Brunhild angrily throw some plates, and this is because she has learned that the gods have designated Poseidon as the third participant of Ragnarok. Because the gods are not holding back anything, they are sending the strongest ones at the beginning since it's evident they want to sweep the series 7-0. The only good thing is that Brunhild already knows that Poseidon will be the opponent, so she can choose from the remaining humans the one she considers could be the best to defeat him. But then, one of the humans entered the room to take his card and said he will be the one to defeat Poseidon, and that human was none other than Sasaki Kojiro. Well, I don't know who the hell Sasaki Kojiro is, but at least he presents himself in a very flashy way. After doing a bit of research on Wikipedia, I realized he was a swordsman who lived in the 1500s, so that's why I didn't know him. The thing is, even though the room's waifus doubted whether the guy they saw was the real Sasaki, considering he looked old, and logically, upon reincarnation, he should take on a young form like Adam did. After Sasaki managed to prevent a water jug from falling, Brunhild concluded that the old man was indeed Sasaki, and he was the most suitable to face Poseidon, the god of the seas. By the way, in the next scene, we see the cheater Poseidon change the arena for his combat, filling the surroundings with water, as he would be weaker than Yamcha in a desert. Although, to be honest, the flooding of the arena surroundings seems a bit pointless since when he was introduced, Poseidon walked in instead of swimming. I mean, the reason for the water was to show off that he's capable of manipulating the sea, but we all know that Poseidon, that's why you're called Poseidon. Anyway, Poseidon made his flashy entrance, and now it's the turn of the great Sasaki Kojiro, who, as the floor where he was supposed to enter is flooded, had to find himself a humble little boat. But Sasaki is anything but humble because during his presentation, they say he's probably the strongest swordsman in humanity because although he suffered many defeats during his life, after each one of them, he came back stronger. So, in addition to being the strongest swordsman in humanity, Sasaki Kojiro is also known as the greatest loser in history. And folks, it might seem like a bad nickname, but they called Kobe Bryant the same and he won 5 NBA championships. The point is to dare to try because without failure, there's no glory. Well, due to Sasaki's bad reputation of having lost many times when he was alive, some people in the stands began to get impatient as they consider that choosing Sasaki, the greatest loser in history, to represent humanity in a combat that will decide the extinction of the race was not the best option. But well, Brunhild trusts in Sasaki's ability to overcome defeats, so during all the years since his death, she believes that Kojiro has become someone very, very strong. And well, Brunhild wasn't wrong because when Sasaki drew his sword, just by that act alone, every single spectator, both gods and humans, felt that Sasaki Kojiro had become too strong. And yes folks, this was just by seeing Sasaki draw his sword and letting it fall to the ground. From here, the judge gave the order to start the combat. However, neither Sasaki nor Poseidon moved from their places, both remained motionless. And in one of these moments, we see Sasaki launching himself at Poseidon and getting pierced by him, but no, all of that actually happened in Kojiro's mind, who is considering various scenarios predicting different outcomes. Until he finds one that favors him, Sasaki won't move because so far, he has considered 18 possible scenarios and has died in all of them. And well, since the fight between Poseidon and Sasaki isn't progressing, Brunhild decides to tell us an anecdote related to Poseidon because it turns out that previously in Olympus, there used to be 13 gods instead of 12, but that 13th god was killed by Poseidon himself. But that's not all. That god was named Adamus and was his older brother. Yes folks, as you heard, Poseidon killed his older brother, and if you don't believe me, let's remember when his brother Adamus was arguing with Poseidon, trying to convince him that he wasn't a traitor, but no, Poseidon didn't even give him the benefit of the doubt and decided to impale him with his spear. Since that day, celestial history was rewritten so that it was understood that there would only be 12 gods in Olympus. Returning to the present, we see that Poseidon and Sasaki are still not moving, so well, since Sasaki notices that Poseidon doesn't seem interested in fighting, he decided to sit down in the middle of the arena because if Poseidon doesn't attack him, he won't attack him either, especially because he has seen that in all the scenarios where he attacks, he ends up dying. So darn it, if there's one thing Sasaki is sure of, it's that he doesn't want to die again. In that moment, we delve into a memory to learn a little more about Sasaki's story, of whom it is said he never won a fight in his life. However, this isn't entirely true, and in this memory, we will find out why it's unfair to say that Sasaki never defeated anyone. For starters, we can see that he was overcome in the dojo school by a guy who weighed about 70 kilos more than him. Even though the dojo master asked Sasaki why he decided to give up if the fight wasn't over yet, Sasaki says he realized that with his current skills, it would be impossible for him to defeat the big guy. So, understanding this, Sasaki preferred to leave for nature, where he learned to surpass himself. After 6 months, he returned to the dojo academy, but now he was much more muscular than before. Hence, when the big guy saw him, he wanted to challenge him. However, Sasaki said he didn't want to harm the big guy because in his mind, he had already surpassed him. And even though this seemed offensive to the big guy, the truth is, he also saw in his mind how Sasaki cut him in half, so he decided to surrender instead. The real reason Kojiro returned to the dojo was to challenge his master to a fight. Defeating his master was his new goal, but the master was too broken and couldn't defeat him. So, with things being like that, Sasaki retired from the dojo to continue his training in nature. Much later, he was visited by his former master, who had even lost his sight but was curious to know what had become of his ex-student Sasaki. Upon entering the place where Sasaki used to train, the old master could see, even though he was blind, all the training Sasaki underwent. He concluded that Sasaki battled in his mind against all his former dojo companions, including him, and he defeated them all. So, saying that Sasaki never won a fight isn't entirely true. He actually won them in his mind after simulating a fight because he was too kind to try to defeat someone in real life. He preferred to learn their movements and face them in his mind. After this, Sasaki continued seeking stronger opponents, against whom he would lose, but it was all with the intention of memorizing their moves and devising a strategy to defeat them in his mind. Naturally, in everyone's eyes, Sasaki was a loser, but very few knew that he had actually surpassed all the people he faced. Just because he didn't do it publicly, he didn't enjoy recognition, but he had the talent. And that talent must be used now because in this fight against Poseidon, he can't give up and pretend to analyze the movements of the god of the seas to defeat him in his mind. Here it's all or nothing. So, finally, Sasaki decided to go on the attack against Poseidon. While the first sword strike failed, he corrected it right away and caught Poseidon off guard to the point where he even cut some of his hair. Well, this is a great achievement because who would have thought that Poseidon would feel the need to look a human in the eyes? Furthermore, to everyone's surprise, Poseidon decided to move towards Sasaki, where he began trying to pierce him with his trident. However, Sasaki managed to dodge all the thrust attempts since he had plenty of time to analyze Poseidon. He already knows what his next moves will be. From the moment Poseidon entered the arena until now, he has recreated more than 1,000 fights, so he knows where each blow will go, and that's why he can dodge them. Brunhilde says that Sasaki is the strongest analyzer in the world. It doesn't take much time because of his many defeats. He developed the ability to analyze the opponent's movements and find a way to counter them. Faced with this, Poseidon started to whistle, and after that, he could move much faster to the point where Sasaki couldn't dodge it in time, so he ended up taking a trident blow to the stomach. After this, poor Sasaki had to kneel on the ground, and now Poseidon looks cool as Sasaki couldn't foresee that attack, and he challenges him by calling him a loser. And indeed, it's nothing new for Sasaki to hear being called a loser. What Poseidon doesn't know is that this loser never gives up, and every time he returns, he comes back wiser than before. That's why we see the great Sasaki standing up, and even though Poseidon attacked him again with his super fast bursts, this time Sasaki managed to dodge them despite having his stomach injured. The problem is that when Sasaki tried to attack, Poseidon was too fast for him, so no matter how hard he tried, he could never hit him. In one of those attempts, Poseidon's base broke Sasaki's sword. Of course, seeing this, everyone in the audience thought the fight was over, because having a swordsman's sword broken is like taking a baseball bat away from a baseball player. It's their main tool. But for now, Sasaki observes from the reflection of his sword a particular person in the stands. And this brings us to a little memory of when Sasaki faced that person from the stands, who turned out to be a very good swordsman named Musashi. This swordsman is the same one Sasaki saw through the reflection of his broken sword. In the memory, we see him fighting with two swords, and that fight, besides being the most fun Sasaki ever had in his life, was also the last because that was the moment Sasaki died from an attack by Musashi. And well, after remembering this, we see Sasaki being as calm as ever, as smiling as ever, go to search for the other part of his sword, which he grips until it draws blood. And in one of those moments, the separate pieces of the Valkyrie sword illuminated green, and by the grace of the script, Sasaki could turn the two sword pieces into two complete swords, so now he will fight in the style of Roronoa Zoro. Facing the fact, Brunhilde explains that Sasaki Zoro was able to turn the sword pieces into separate swords because the Valkyrie he has is the only one capable of splitting into two. But oh well, this is a script invention. They won't fool me. The good thing is that this script invention benefits us because Sasaki is one of us, and we can't afford to fall 3-0 behind against the gods. So for now, Poseidon tried to bail on Sasaki, but now Sasaki with two swords manages to repel the trident attacks more easily, while in the meantime, Musashi's son thought that it was his father fighting and not Sasaki. Faced with this, Musashi himself says he's convinced that after his death, Sasaki didn't stop facing him in his mind. In fact, since it was the last fight of his life, Sasaki had plenty of time in the afterlife to learn all of his moves, so it makes sense that he's now fighting like him, but not only like him, he's also mixing those skills with others such as those of his dojo master or another master he had, and thus, using a mix of the best techniques he knows, Sasaki was able to successfully counterattack to the point of slashing Poseidon's cheek and several parts of his body. After this, humanity's morale soared as they see that with Sasaki, there is hope of winning. But well, for humanity, hope lasts very little because the damn Poseidon started whistling. He healed his wounds, got even more buffed, and began attacking even faster than before, resulting in poor Sasaki being injured because even though he could foresee Poseidon's movements, his attacks were very powerful, so it was impossible for him to avoid getting hurt. At one point, Poseidon went crazy, throwing many fast punches at once, so we see Sasaki resisting to the limit while his inner self was sinking to the bottom of the sea. At the same time, he felt like throwing in the towel. But then, all the people who support him appeared to encourage him, and on the court, everyone is cheering his name, so with this, Kojiro felt revitalized because it's the first time he feels supported. He was always treated as inferior. So now, our dear Sasaki Kojiro entered a state similar to the zone, where his pain disappeared, and he was able to start seeing Poseidon's blows clearly. That's why he could dodge them even without using his swords, to the point of getting close and positioning himself inches away from Poseidon, where he ended up waving his sword and cutting off one of the sea god's arms. Then, when Poseidon tried to slash Sasaki with the trident, Kojiro blew off his other arm, and even though Poseidon wanted to use his mouth, Sasaki ended up chopping him into 4 pieces. With this, there was no way Poseidon could grab his trident again, so for Brunhilde's joy and the rest of humanity, the winner of the third fight ended up being the great Sasaki Kojiro. And of course, this fact left the gods speechless because in their minds, it was always impossible for a human to defeat a god, but well, that's so they don't underestimate us. Meanwhile, as this was officially Sasaki's first victory in life, he's enjoying himself standing there in the middle of the arena, hearing the crowd cheer his name. When a bridge opened for him to leave the court, poor Sasaki was about to faint from exhaustion, but then he was grabbed by the Valkyrie that was in his weapon, who helped him out. On the other hand, we see that the gods had a private meeting led by the still injured Zeus, where he acknowledged that humanity is strong. So he orders the rest of the gods not to be overconfident or hold back from now on. Sometime after this meeting, we see the announcement of the fourth fight, for which they decided to slightly transform the arena due to a request from the human participant for this fight. And who do we see entering the scene? None other than Jack the Ripper. Meanwhile, for the gods, the fighter will be none other than Hercules. But folks, to be able to see this fourth fight, we'll have to wait for a second season of this anime. If you want me to summarize it as soon as it comes out, just leave a comment with the word Ragnarok, and I'll get right on it.